Next on Currents News, will she or won't she testify? That's the question surrounding the woman who's accusing Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault. Cultivating vocations in the Hispanic community, a top priority at the V Encuentro that's about to begin in Texas. The backlash from last night's Emmy Awards after a joke about Jesus Christ that many are calling outrageous. Plus, the big retailers are putting out the word they're ready to hire. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Controversy is mounting around the confirmation of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court. Tonight, there's pressure to have the woman who's accusing him of sexual assault testify publicly before the Senate votes on the nomination. Emily Schmidt reports the very latest.
This session is adjourned.
As the Senate Judiciary Committee looks to close the book on Brett Kavanaugh and forward his nomination, there's an unexpected chapter to be written with a hearing added next Monday.
Judge Kavanaugh is very anxious to do it, and a delay is certainly acceptable.
There must not be a hearing on Monday and then a possible vote on the nominee a day or two after.
Professor Christine Blasey Ford says Kavanaugh physically and sexually assaulted her at a party more than 30 years ago. Kavanaugh has denied her allegations. They are both invited to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee, though Chairman Chuck Grassley says Ford has not confirmed multiple email requests.
So it kind of raises the question: do they want to come to the public hearing or not?
Grassley says only Ford and Kavanaugh would testify. Democrats say that is not enough. In a statement, Senator Dianne Feinstein observed that there were a number of witnesses at the Anita Hill hearings during the confirmation process for Justice Clarence Thomas in 1991. Feinstein is calling for more outside witnesses, while some Republicans say Democrats are trying to run out the clock until the midterms.
They sat on this information for nearly 7 weeks. 7 weeks.
That delay happened as Ford deliberated whether to go public with her story. Now that she has, Washington wonders when she will tell it next. In Washington, Emily Schmidt, Currents News.
Thousands of Catholics are heading to Texas for what will be a major event for the church. The V Encuentro kicks off on Thursday. The call to religious life will be a major theme at the event. Currents News' Tim Harfman has a preview.
Edwin Perez is an immigrant from Colombia and believes God is calling him to the priesthood.
I was involved with the immigrants and support Latino communities in the church. Is that the way that God chose to invite me to discern the vocation to the priesthood?
Now he's the director of religious education at Blessed Sacrament Church in Jackson Heights, Queens, and feels God may be calling his students too. But he says it's challenging.
Some of them I can see, oh, this is a potential vocation. But when you speak with them, okay, they had different goals in their life far away from vocations.
The need for vocations within the Hispanic community is an issue Edwin wants addressed at this week's National Fifth Encuentro, or Encounter.
We had the Quinto Encuentro. But what happens if the church doesn't have priests for the future? We had a document from the Quinto Encuentro, but there is no vocation. How we are going to live?
Edwin will join nearly 3,000 clerics and other lay leaders in Texas. Their mission is to strengthen the Hispanic ministry in the church. Edwin's pastor, Father Carlos Quijano, is also going to the 3-day summit and sees vocations as both a need and a challenge from Hispanic families.
They want to have nice and fancy jobs, good income, better life, and they assume that the sacrificial part of the priesthood is not worthy.
According to a nationwide survey as part of the Fifth Encuentro, there are 30 million Hispanic Catholics in the United States, but only 3,000 Hispanic priests, and most of them were born elsewhere. To promote the need for vocations, Edwin says it should be discussed with young Hispanic Catholics.
I think the way that we can improve this is speak about vocations in the faith formation programs and also in the programs like for youth, like altar service.
In Jackson Heights, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
The upcoming National Encuentro will be discussing many themes crucial to the church and Hispanic Catholics. Special Assistant to the Vicar for Hispanic Concerns, Deacon Jorge Castillo, and Charismatic Renewal and writer for Nuestra Voz, Cruz Teresa Rosero, joins us now to provide some insight. Thank you so much for being with us. I love having these discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to get right to it. The National Encuentro this year is in Texas, and it's going to be close to the U.S.-Mexico border. Clearly, immigration is going to be on the minds of everyone in attendance, but what's going to be discussed? Let's talk about the major themes, because I know it's going to be very broad, but what would be the main immigration themes, Teresa, that will be discussed?
I think it's the political issue. How do we fight or struggle for immigration reform? We have been doing this for years already, but now it has come. It's an emergency. It's an emergency. We have seen the divisions of families, thousands of children suffering, parents who have been deported. And right now, there are deportees in their countries who have not been in touch with their children, who are here and they don't know where. So this is an emergency. There are many things that we're going to talk about it. The immigrants that we have here, the millions without papers, the children who have been born here, what to do with it.
Now, so you call it an emergency, and this is where I want to bring you in, Deacon. How did the importance of this issue get lost? And what can we as a community here in the Diocese of Immigrants bring it to the fore outside of the Encuentro for now?
One of the main things that the Diocese of Brooklyn is doing right now with the Office of Catholic Migration is that they're bringing their people over to the parishes to teach the migrants how to react, how to behave, what to do in a case of an emergency that you just said. ICE is here, ICE is on, let's say, 74th and Roosevelt. How can we help? So the Catholic Church is helping them through the office.
Teresa, you mentioned this a little bit in your first answer. Immigration has really deeply divided this country. The Trump administration obviously has taken a hard line, right? The church has been urging mercy and welcome. Does the Encuentro support immigration today in its form, and how will you build on that?
Oh yes, it's one of the main topics at the V Encuentro. And I have to say, very sadly, Liz, that this division is not only in the country, but it's as well in the church, within our church. Because now I'm very careful when I talk about immigration, because I know, I have heard answers of people who say, well, they have to follow the law, they have broken the law, now they have to pay the consequences. We need to make people aware, to hear the real stories. We have to bring people who share their pain to convert, to bring people to conversion, because we need to be united on this.
How do we have the conversation without fear, though?
That's right, because there is a lot of fear. I mean, I have seen people who do not have documents, but they will not tell you that they don't have it. But we know them. I know them, and I know their fear, and I know their anguish.
Deacon, you have the last word. How will the Encuentro lay the foundation to proclaim the church's teachings on migration? We have 30 seconds.
We have to live the gospel. We have to go to them, bring it to the people, and reassure them that they're not alone, that those of us that have documents will do our best, voting, and then promoting better migration laws for their help.
All right, so it's all about building the foundation.
Yes.
The Encuentro, the fifth Encuentro, is going to do a lot to do for that. Thank you so much for being with us. We got a lot of information in the time that we were here.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hurricane Florence claimed the lives of more than 30 people since it stormed ashore and has now caused a tornado. Omar Jimenez reports from North Carolina, where the disaster is far from over.
First the wind, then the rain, and flooding. Now tornadoes. That's the latest devastation brought on by Hurricane Florence, this time in Virginia, where at least 6 different counties were affected by multiple tornadoes Monday.
Unfortunately, here at Old Dominion Flooring, one employee is confirmed deceased, and we have our crews on scene that will be working to recover the body here shortly.
As Florence moves northeast and dissipates, it will drop a final few inches of rain in the already waterlogged region.
We've been preparing for and living through Hurricane Florence for more than a week now. But this remains a significant disaster that affects much of our state.
Once the rain stops, the water will continue to rush downstream, causing catastrophic and historic river flooding, according to the National Weather Service.
The next few days will be long ones as the flooding continues.
And one of the biggest concerns, this river, which is actually parts Interstate 40 and I-95, major arteries through the state that have been cut off, and officials can't say exactly for how long until the water goes away. From Fayetteville, North Carolina, Omar Jimenez, Currents News.
Emergency economic assistance is being rushed by Catholic charities to areas hard hit by Hurricane Florence. Record rainfall and flooding have been recorded since the storm made landfall last week. Catholic Charities of South Carolina has been preparing to help those in need even before the storm hit. Essential supplies are being made available to residents. The leaders from both sides of the Korean peninsula are meeting again. Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in greeted each other in Pyongyang today for their 3rd summit this year. The countries are trying to establish peace, while other global leaders are still wary of the peace efforts. North Korea has yet to convince both the United Nations and the Trump administration of the North's complete denuclearization. A mistake by Syria has cost the lives of over a dozen Russian military service members. Russia is blaming Israel after Syria inadvertently shot down one of its military airplanes Monday. Syria was using anti-aircraft artillery to ward off an Israeli attack, but claimed the lives of 15 service members that were on board the aircraft in the process. Hundreds of thousands more have died during the Syrian civil war. There's a lot more news headed your way. Survivors of sex abuse in Pennsylvania are going to court to open up more records about the cases. The Pope is acting so that bishops listen more to the lay faithful, the change coming in time for a big church meeting. The name of a Catholic saint is being stripped from a prominent university in California. And do you have a story idea, something happening in your parish we should know about? We want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@thesalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. New controversy about Saint Junipero Serra, the 18th century Franciscan friar who established a missionary church in California. Pope Francis canonized him. Now Stanford University is removing the holy man's name from some of its properties. Saint Junipero Serra had been featured around the campus, but a spokesman for the university said in a statement that while the saint's missionary zeal is part of California's history, it was also one that, quote, inflicted great harm and violence on Native Americans. The Pope is putting new rules in place so that church listens more closely to Catholics. The changes are occurring in advance of next month's big meeting known as a synod dedicated to young people, the faith, and vocations. Melissa Butts is standing by at the Vatican with the story.
Instead of postponing the synod as some bishops had asked Pope Francis to do in the wake of the continuing sex abuse scandals, he instead made some changes to the setup of the synod with an apostolic constitution. Now, with the setup of the synod is more of a way for bishops to listen to the concerns of the people of God. The Pope has updated the rules that guide the synod of bishops so that the assembly can be more effective. He has done so in a high-ranking document, the Apostolic Constitution Episcopalis Communio, which immediately goes into play. It was presented at the Vatican by the General Secretary of the Synod, who explained that the main change is that more weight is given to the beginning phase and to the application of the conclusions.
Each synod is expected to begin with a consultation for opinions at all levels. Until now, the churches were consulted, but in a very limited way, and more importance was given to the celebration and meeting of the assembly. Now we want to take time to consult people and get together to listen to opinions.
Each synod addresses a specific theme. The last ones were about the Eucharist, the Bible, the new evangelization, and the family. The idea is for all Catholics to participate in the preparation by reflecting on themselves personally and sending in suggestions. This will allow problems to be detected and effective solutions to be given. A practical example was the pre-synod meeting with 300 youth from all over the world in March. In the end, their proposals were included in the working document the bishops will use at the synod on youth and vocation that begins October 3rd.
We have to see people, talk to them, exchange ideas. That is the change. We want all the baptized to personally be involved in the synod.
With these changes, the Pope is trying to ensure that the bishops around the world listen to the concerns of all of the people within their parishes, even those concerns that are difficult to hear, like the current scandals. With this, also that there will be a transparency within the church that perhaps wasn't there before. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Liz.
All right, thank you, Melissa. A group of clerical sex abuse survivors are suing the church in Pennsylvania for more information on what happened. The new court action comes in the wake of that grand jury report on sex abuse that found more than 1,000 people suffered abuse at the hands of about 300 priests.
We're done being lied to, and now our truth will be heard, and our children will be protected.
The days of concealment need to be over. And that is what our lawsuit seeks, the release of this important information, so that today's children, today's Catholic children and other children are made safer.
The lawsuit aims to force the release of all the names that were redacted in last month's grand jury report. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio has taken significant action to prevent abuse in the diocese. Under his leadership, the Office of Victim Assistance helps individuals who come forward with allegations of abuse. The office provides many resources, including counseling and referrals for therapy. Every employee of the diocese, including students, undergo mandatory training to prevent and identify abuse. The bishop meets with survivors and listens to them carefully. The diocese holds a yearly Mass of Hope and Healing, which they suggested. The diocese also has a toll-free and confidential sexual abuse reporting line. That number is 888-634-4499. And for more information, go to the Diocese of Brooklyn's website, dioceseofbrooklyn.org, and click on Protecting Our Children. Still to come on Currents News, an income record and big hiring plans. And was Jesus the butt of a bad joke at the Emmys last night? Hear what the word on the street is next. And I'll have the story of a man who's set to become the first tourist to the moon. We'll be right back. Hispanic households in America are hitting a new record regarding income. The Census Bureau's annual report is out and finds the median household income for Hispanics hit a high of over $50,000 last year. The 3.7% increase marks the biggest jump ever in any single year. The median in 2016 was over $48,000. And more good news on the economic front. With the holiday season soon upon us, retailers are making big hiring plans. Stores like Macy's and Gap are scrambling to hire seasonal workers in an effort to prepare for an expected overwhelming volume of customers in their aisles. Macy's said they will hire 80,000 workers, while Gap is said to bring on 65,000. Target, UPS, and FedEx are also looking to hire between 120 to 150,000 workers. Some Christians are complaining about last night's Emmy Awards TV show and a joke involving Jesus. During the opening monologue, Saturday Night Live's Michael Che told co-host Colin Jost that his mother wouldn't be tuning into the program.
You know who's not? My mother's not watching. What? Well, she said she doesn't like watching white award shows because you guys don't thank Jesus enough. That's true. The only white people that thank Jesus are Republicans and ex-crackheads, so.
And Che went back to the Jesus theme when he mentioned that out of 6 white award winners, none thanked Jesus. On the streets of Brooklyn, Currents News surveyed viewers for their reactions to that monologue.
I mean, that's a little, I don't know, I think that's a little intense of a statement to make.
I just think it was stupid.
Do you think if it was about maybe another faith or if it was about race that this would be a big issue?
Race, faith, whichever way is still wrong. Should not have been said in the first place at all.
Those are not funny jokes. You know, if it gets a bad response, he won't do it again.
You know, obviously I don't believe that that's true. I don't think that he does either, but for, you know, the temperament of an award show, it's slightly edgy. It made me chuckle. I knew that the point that he was getting at was a bigger one.
Well, I thought it was really very political. It had nothing to do with religion.
According to preliminary ratings posted by Deadline Hollywood, last night's Emmys hit an all-time low. A Japanese man has paid big bucks for a trip out of this world. He'll be the first tourist to fly to the moon. Elon Musk introduced the first space tourist who will ride in the SpaceX Big Falcon rocket. It's Japanese billionaire Yusaku Misawa.
I can tell you that I choose to go to the moon. Finally, I can say I'm very glad to be here, and I'm really exciting and really honored, really appreciate to be able to share this announcement with you.
Musk, who believes the maiden voyage will be successful, albeit potentially dangerous, praised Misawa.
He's a very brave person to do this, and because he is paying a lot of money. We're not disclosing the amount, but he is paying a lot of money that will help with the development of this ship and booster. And ultimately, this BFR system is intended to be able to carry anyone to orbit and to the moon and to Mars.
For me, this project is very meaningful. I thought long and hard about how valuable it would become the first private passenger to go to the moon. At the same time, I thought about how I can give back to the world.
Misawa says he has a passion for art and plans to bring a dozen artists with him around the moon. Musk says engineers have already begun work on the rocket and they could begin testing it in a couple of years. A trip to the moon would take about a week, Musk says, to Mars several months. Musk hopes the trip will happen by 2023.
If everything goes approximately right, then this is the date. But there's so many uncertainties.
Mr. Misawa, who gained his fortune by starting a large online clothing line, will be the first person to travel to the moon since 1972. Meantime, a historic first for NASA. The agency officially named their first female chief flight director on Monday. Holly Ridings will be responsible for a team of 32 flight directors, people who oversee human space flight missions. Ms. Ridings has been working at NASA for 20 years. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.